Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Hare Krishna and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. We continue in the 5th canto, chapter 14, text 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaivam Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nasta Praeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashluke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. So the verse is anyway in some prose. I think it's anyway not written on the board as well. Yeah, we just go word by word and then do translation. Muktaha, liberated. Tata, from that. Yadi, if. Bandhat, from the government imprisonment. Or being beaten by the protector of the women. Devadatta, person named Devadatta. Upakjinati, takes the money from him. Tasmat, from the person named Devadatta. Api, again. Vishnumitraha, a person named Vishnumitra. Iti, thus. Anavastitihi, the riches do not stay in one place, but pass from one hand to another. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money, the conditioned soul, somehow or other, keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnumitra steals the money from Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Riches come from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is the property of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayana. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband, Narayana. For example, Lakshmi was carried away by the materialistic Ravana. Ravana kidnapped Sita, the goddess of fortune, belonging to Lord Ram. As a result, Ravana's entire family, opulence and kingdom were smashed, and Sita, the goddess of fortune, was recovered from his clutches and reunited with Lord Rama. Thus, all property, riches and wealth belong to Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhaktaram yakyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the true beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, and He is the Supreme Proprietor of all the planetary systems. Foolish, materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves. But they cannot keep it. In any case, it must be spent. One person cheats another, and another person cheats someone else. And therefore, the best way to possess Lakshmi is to keep her by the side of Narayana. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with Narayana, Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna. Lakshmi Narayana. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayana, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. However, if one wants to enjoy Lakshmi the way Ravana did, he will be vanished by the laws of nature, and whatever few possessions he has will be taken away. Finally, death will take everything away, and death is the representative of Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gramayam Darati Svavarantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vagishayasya Vadhane Lakshmiryasya Chavakshasi Yasya Te Hridaye Samvit Tam Narasimham Aham Bhaje Pralada Hridayaladam Bhakta Vityavidaram Sharatindurachim Vande Parindra Vandanam Harim. Translation, one more time. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money, the conditioned soul somehow or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnumitra steals the money from Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Riches. Here the word money is used a lot, but I think it's important to consider that money as we know it nowadays in terms of notes and coins is not always the only currency in which riches are being expressed. You know, maybe our currency system, the money is, I don't know how many 1,000 years old, but if you consider like how long the world exists in many ages, so actually this speaks about riches also in a more original sense, let's say gold, diamonds, like materials that are considered very valuable and which are used to trade in for something. The money we use is just like a means of trade, this is what we are told, to acquire things that you can enjoy, but also bare necessities of life. Whatever food you need, drink you need, clothing you need, or like want, or like phones. And so the money is a means to enjoyment, actually. You know? So, though the problem is that how we use it and what we buy from it is like, how to say, not really in our self-interest usually. And it's, how to say, it's good if we consider what are actually real riches. For the materialistic mind, riches are in the external world in terms of possessions, right? That's what people aim for. Maybe nowadays it's cars, like fancy cars or certain houses. So many things that are required to, how to say, that the body gets comfort. But from the Vedic perspective, this is not really wealth. Srila Prabhupada often says the real wealth is in nature. If people have sufficient food grains, fruits, milk, etc., these things that the body is sustained from, that would be riches. person used to be rich in Vedic understanding if you have cows, for example, that can provide milk and can be used in agriculture and so on. So it's a different understanding of wealth there in terms of what is really valuable. Because if you talk of riches, we think of something that has value. And the ideas of value may shift in certain societies at certain times. And now it's considered valuable if you have some, how to say, imaginary currency, like which is, no, I forgot the word, all the kind of things that are Bitcoin and so on is. You know, it's a number somewhere on in how to say, in the internet, but it's nothing really tangible. It can be gone any second, whatever. So it's more like an idea of wealth. It's on paper. It's not really something you can have in your hands. It's more like numbers, right? So, but that's not the real understanding of wealth. And even another understanding of wealth is in terms of what is internally. Wealthy is a person who has, let's say, a developed character, who has a developed consciousness, who has qualities that enable him to advance spiritually. Also in our understanding, in our philosophy, it's considered that Vaishnavas develop naturally if they progress on the path of devotional service 26 particular qualities. They say they are in Krishna, but the Vaishnava develops them on the way of his progression in devotional service. And what is the difference like between qualities, or you will hear more about them, and as a wealth internally, and riches that you have externally as materials? One thing is like in the riches that we have, or what people consider wealth, there's a promise. That's why people aim for them. In everything we see a promise of happiness, a promise of fulfillment, a promise of power, a promise of whatever. So the thing is, like why here, like it said, people steal and cheat. The problem is that things we can buy with money are, how to say, very quickly either satiated or like they lose potency. Let's say if you consider wealth in terms of eating and drinking, it's a consumable. Consumable means for a certain time you have enjoyment and then it's passed away, it's gone. Your body also passes it out again. And so you have to acquire it new. So it's a constant kind of, you have to invest more and more and more for the things you enjoy, because the level of satisfaction is decreasing the more you actually have. That's interesting. Although the idea is the more I have, the more I will enjoy, but it's the other way around. The more you constantly enjoy, the less satisfaction you have. Because there's also something like satiation, you know, and it's also, another thing is self-centeredness. So, because if it's just for me, it's not as type of pleasure as if I can maybe provide for others or serve others. So therefore, if things are always satiated and if they cease to in their potency, people want more. So greed is developed, and because lust, then comes to greed, and then people tend to just take away from others, regardless whether it's rightful or not. And also in previous verses it was stated, like here, how the soul becomes very shameless. Even own family members are being exploited, you know, and cheated. Things are taken away. And here there are two names mentioned. They're just synonyms for anybody, Devadatta or Vishnumitra. These are not particular personalities. They're just, could be random. You could put any person in there. It's just like one person will steal from another. Because at some point, it's the mentality of a thief, because we are all, if we are not following the Ishavasya principle as it is outlined in the Sri Upanishad in the first verse, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagadam jagat tena chaktina punkchita makrita kashya svittanam. that everything that exists, all moving, non-moving, living or non-living things, are owned and possessed by the Lord, and every living entity has his quota that is given to him, but one should not take more than that, knowing well whom it belongs to. So as soon as this principle is violated, we are becoming thieves. We take away Krishna's possessions, and here Lakshmi Devi particularly is the representative of that. And it cannot, the nature of the world works according to the will of Krishna, and even if we don't like it, the Lakshmi will not stay with the jiva. It will always go to Narayan. But if you tune into that, then also we can enjoy riches, as Srila Prabhupada say, as servants. So, but I just slightly, I went a bit in another direction. I want to get back quickly to the satiation. So, there's the illusion that the more I have, the more I enjoy, the better, or the more I'm happy, or the more I will be fulfilled or happy. But that's not happening, rather on the contrary. The more people invest on the external, they tend to be empty inside, because the investments are always in the fleeting things. But if you, for example, invest in the riches in terms of qualities that you develop yourself spiritually or simply as a human being, it's interesting. The more you spend practically in terms of giving your abilities in the service to Vaishnavas, for example, or also in the normal world for helping people, supporting people, it becomes more. Right? If you give yourself, share yourself, you increase actually, because let's say, you can say your qualities blossom. On the contrary, if you keep things to yourself, they rather wither away a bit. It's also said similar with knowledge. If you know a lot of things, you cultivate knowledge, but you don't share it, you don't teach it, you don't support others with it, it will cease at some point to exist. Because the point of knowledge is not to be kept away. The point of knowledge is to be, people are taught and people can benefit from it. So similarly, we have riches in terms of either already developed qualities or potential qualities that can be used in Krishna's service. And these are just 26 Vaishnava qualities I would like to read a bit about. They're actually outlined in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but there's also a Srimad Bhagavatam verse, also in the 5th canto. It's, I think, the 15th chapter. 5, 18, 12. I read from the purport. In the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, there's a description of some of the qualities of devotees. For example, Sri Pandit Haridas is described as being very well behaved, tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, and grave. In addition, he spoke very sweetly, his endeavors were very pleasing, he was always patient, he respected everyone, he always worked for everyone's benefit, his mind was free of duplicity, and he was completely devoid of all malicious activities. These are all originally qualities of Krishna, and when one becomes a devotee, they automatically become manifest. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that all good qualities become manifest in the body of a Vaishnava, and that only by the presence of these good qualities can one distinguish a Vaishnava from a non-Vaishnava. And now there's a list. First quality mentioned, he is very kind to everyone. Second, he does not make anyone his enemy. Third, he is truthful. Fourth, he is equal to everyone. 5, no one can find fault in him. That's an achievement. You get there. 6, he is magnanimous. 7, he's mild. 8, he's always clean. 9, he is without possessions. So interesting, completely the contrary. People think wealth, riches means possessing things. The Vaishnava has a different type of wealth. He actually refrains from possessions in that sense. Because the essential possession of a Vaishnava is Krishna. That's the most valuable thing, to have the holy name, but also it's one's capacity to serve Krishna. Because, as we said before, what do we usually buy with riches? That what sustains the body or makes the body enjoyable. But really sustained is the self is by that what we call dharma. Dharma is also, as if I have it correctly, that what maintains something. Like I said, dharma, the term is correct. That what maintains, I think, one's existence, right? So if we really develop, or let's say, let our nature blossom and in the service to others, this we consider being really rich. Also some poets, like also one German poet I recently read, when he talked about, like he called his, or in his poem he said, no one knows how rich they are, actually. That means that, and he points to qualities, also like patience, etc. That these characteristics can be rightfully considered riches, because it makes you valuable as a human being to others. If you're just greedy like this, you cheat and you kill and you're not, let's say, valuable to others, you're a threat, right? But Vaishnavas, if they have developed these qualities, sometimes also people use the metaphor, oh, this person is a jewel, right? Because they consider that's really valuable. And I think this is where we have to place also our mind to the true value of a living being, which is not in possessions or position and power. It's really about character and qualities and spiritual development. And Srila Prabhupada says here that how do you recognize a Vaishnava? It's not only by the externals, it's by the development of certain qualities. The more they are developed, you can understand this person is advanced. Right? So, like, he's without possessions. Nowadays, we maybe need to ask, okay, what does that mean practically? What is no possession? Does it mean you have only like barely a roof over your head and a mat where you can sleep in a little water? If you look at the 6 Goswamis, that's not doable for practically anyone. Right? So we need to have some possessions, but be careful to not gather things. I also noticed that over the years, like way too many things I gathered, like, and have them, and then, it's unnecessary, and it's not, and it's, how to say, it hinders the capacity for simplicity. Then at the quality number 10, he works for everyone's benefit. And that's that. I also experienced it just recently. I'm at the moment like some devotee, also I know from back then from Germany. And I support him with what I do because I'm in the field of coaching and therapy. I developed myself over the years. And I feel like also I told him and others, for me the benefit of it is that I can do it. That I can be of service. I notice it's rewarding in itself if you can be really of help, like be really a support to others in their development. If you also do it in the understanding, Krishna equipped me with certain abilities or qualities. This is also something similarly like Lakshmi is there, like everyone is also has a certain amount of money or wealth or land, or according to our karma we got different things. But we can understand them to be Lakshmi, and it's supposed to be placed next to Narayan, as the purport stresses so many times. So it's supposed we are supposed to use everything in that type of service, in which includes our body and our mind, but also the qualities we have. And if you invest in developing these qualities and then serve others with these qualities, that's our way to fulfillment. That sustains us. Because so many people are very unhappy and not fulfilled because they need to do either things which don't fit their nature, but also the service, it's not in a mentality of service and it's not for the benefit, to say, of the development of others. So therefore it's, let's say, wasted money, we can say, if you take the metaphor. So, but if we consciously take that, what we have, acknowledge it as like, okay, that's a blessing, Krishna equipped me with this or that, and that's how I can find my way to fulfillment, which is not working with the riches that are described here in this verse. If it's just money and you try to buy things for your senses, of course they may give you peace for a certain time. It's like, how to say, not to be underestimated to have material security, right? Hardly anyone. You must be really strong in terms of faith and, how to say, peacefulness. If you how to say, lack a lot of things, let's say either money or like, you don't know, will I live there in this place for a long time? Will I be able to pay my bills and so on? So of course it's important, that you have some security. Yes, but it's important to not, how to say, get absorbed too much in this kind of thinking, because ultimately Krishna takes care. Like, and if we cannot control it, it's also what the purport says. Lakshmi comes and goes. Chanchala, she's restless. So even if we manage to gather perhaps some money aside or some possessions, we never know in which way Krishna may take it away again. Is for me recently, like also I noticed I put a bit of money on the side, and then because one year I earned a bit more. But then the thing is, like the tax system is like that. At a certain amount, you come in a so-called progression, and then you might pay much more tax, and then it's gone again, kind of most of it. So it's sometimes out of nowhere another bill comes or something. Oh, this got to pay, or like then the rent goes up or whatever. So all the time there's something. But then also unexpectedly you get something back from somewhere. Oh, okay. And then so it's always you have to rely on that Krishna will take care. And I think the most important thing is to stay in service, because this is such a crucial part of our philosophy, to identify as the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. But yeah, among each other, the people you're close with, your friends, your family, the Vaishnavas you're connected with, to be in that mood, to always see, like, share what you have. Because as we said before already, on the contrary to money or something, the more you spend it, at some point it's gone. But qualities that you share, like your abilities, your service, it makes an increase, actually. Of course, if you do not balance, so to say, your own needs with others, you might burn out, as we know. But it's more about, like, essentially, but if you use these qualities, they stay alive, Let's say, for example, with knowledge, if you study, if you're good at studying and you're good at maybe teaching, and the more you study, and the more you should teach, to share that what you process, because also for you learn by teaching, for example, but also others might get inspired. And so in this way, it's increased. You give and it's increasing. Right, where if you just money, for example, if you spend it at some point, it's gone, unless you do it cleverly by investment. But it's not the same as giving. So I think this is important. Therefore, that is real wealth if you develop as a person, because then you, how to say, it's also something that stays. If you truly have developed a certain character, it cannot inflate, just like money, for example. That's who you are then. And even sometimes if some qualities may be covered a bit, they're essentially there and they can be rekindled at some point, Because we have different periods in life, sometimes we feel like they're... Also, we never know what comes in which chapter. You think, oh yeah, my life will probably be like this, and then I will do this, and then I will do this. But then on the way, it may turn out very different, right? So yeah, here are the Vaishnava qualities. I would go back to them quickly, because yeah, he works for everyone's benefit. Then 11, he's very peaceful. 12, he's always surrendered to Krishna. 13, he has no material desires. 14, he's very meek. 15, he's steady. 16, he controls his senses. 17, he does not eat more than 17. He does not eat more than required. 18, he's not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. 19, he offers respect to everyone. And 20, he does not desire any respect for himself. 21, he's very grave. 22, he's merciful. 23, he's friendly. And 24, he's poetic, kavi. And that's a quality like that, I pay a lot of attention to in the last few years, because I also study poetry a lot, try to also write it myself and use it as a therapeutic means. Because that's also a wonderful way to process your own Krishna conscious experiences, for example. And it's interesting in our culture, in the Vaishnava culture, like the poetry has such an essential position. Let's say the Brahma Samhita, for example, it must be considered a form of poetry. You know, Lord Brahma used a certain meter, certain verses. It's a poetic expression. Though it's not like, he just applied his creativity and wrote something nice to glorify Krishna. Actually, for him, it's like transmitting his direct experience of the transcendental world and putting it into words, in poetic words, for us to also get a picture into the spiritual world. But it's also said in Vrindavan, because tomorrow is Krishna Janmashtami, when the cowherd boys were out with Krishna in the forest, but also if Mother Yashoda or anyone had encounters with Krishna and were participating in pastimes, what they did is they told the story of the day to a poet with the task, please write that down as a poetic kind of record. And that was the culture. That it was common to say, okay, hey, we had such a nice pastime with Krishna, like this and that, and let's go to a poet that he writes it down. And this is mentioned in a few places by Srila Prabhupada, how this is being done. Also, Rupa Goswami is a great poet. There's the Chitra Kavitvani. Someone knows that one? It's like Sri Rupa Goswami is such a genius in Sanskrit. He sometimes just used, I think, 2 Sanskrit syllables, and he made poems out of it. Very wonderful, deep poems about glorifying Krishna. And these poems, besides their, being letters in a certain format, can also be translated into a picture. I don't know how to explain it now in English, but there's a book. There's one devotee, I think Matsya Das. He published it, and this is something also can be done. That language, because also if you take a certain system, like also with numerology, with numbers and letters, you can combine, but also with images. So these verses can also put into. One is a mridanga, one was a kind of a snake, according to how the letters had been arranged. It's a very interesting thing. And that's all in the context of poetry. So it's a very big part and wonderful part of our culture. Also Srimad Bhagavatam, Sanskrit shlokas, it's all poetry actually. And we sing it, we sing the verses, right? In a particular way, because it's poetic expression. So it's also something which is helpful in our spiritual life sometimes, if we may also consider, could be helpful to maybe write down, or either in a poetic way or another way, reflect on our experiences in our spiritual life, right? May it be a diary, might be writing a book, because writing is also a very essential thing. Srila Prabhupada encouraged, particularly sannyas disciples, but also others, to write about Krishna, that can reach people as well. Even also Hermann Hesse, he also wrote a very actually nice poem about the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very deep thing. It's in German. I cannot translate it into English how this goes. But yeah, because poetic language is a bit different than like normal spoken language or like, you know, scientific language or whatever. It reaches you on a different level. It has like a different way of transporting that what you want to say. So I find it interesting that it is particularly mentioned kavi, is the Sanskrit word for poetic, and kavi can mean learned, but it can also mean poetic. You know, we have Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the king of poets, right? So it's there. And also, if you remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, when there was these scholars and people, when they had these debates or the challenges, what was it about? Like, who can, how to say, create a superior poetry practically, you know? And then he pointed out all the mistakes, and one I forgot about. It was about, I don't know the personality, but it was about the glorification of the Yamuna, I think. And then he pointed out all the mistakes in his poetry, how it is like according to the system, because then it comes in with logic, and it's like a whole world of language, and but it's amazing. Yes, and then comes the next 25. He's expert, or Daksha is the Sanskrit name, expert. And 26, he's silent. How to understand that? If someone is poetic and this, how is he silent? Srila Prabhupada says, silence means to always think about self-realization. That was very stuck with me when I heard that the first time. Silence means like to be being thoughtful, like goes along with being grave. So that's something, if certain abilities are there, like these qualities, they allow us to advance spiritually. Someone who's, let's say, very talkative and always speaking about Prajalpa cannot, like, how to say, really center himself or herself internally, because it's always about you know, talking. So this is a very helpful quality if you can be thoughtful, grave, silent, but all the other ones as well. And indeed, or like in fact, what is very interesting as well, how knowledge is defined in a Vedic sense. Because if we talk about qualities like this and how they are riches of a person, in the Bhagavad Gita in 13, 8 to 12, we find a description what is knowledge. And it's a list of character qualities, characteristics. It's not like it's a definition, an academic definition, knowledge is whatever, like then there comes some formula. It starts with, anyone has by chance in mind what it starts with?
Humility and non-violence.
Yes. Humility is the first item. Pridelessness comes, and then non-violence, tolerance, simplicity. So many of the qualities that we read also appear here. Yes, and then he says, all these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So what is the connection between qualities and knowledge, right? It's about being able to really see things, because our character is very crucial how we deal with information. Nowadays also people have a lot of information about a lot of things, but they may tend to misuse it, not really recognizing the value, for example, also of scientific knowledge. But also, if, how to say, knowledge is generated also by interpreting experiences. Say in the field of science, you have certain of geology or biology and whatever you use, like in evolution theory, for example, it's not that the facts present themselves objectively to you. It's not. Everyone looks at it subjectively and interprets it. Like we interpret a text. We can read the same text all for ourselves and might have different thoughts on it. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki jai. And how we interpret these things, or what we take out of it, or what do we recognize in it or not, depends on our character. What is our consciousness, our state of mind? We project it in Atmavan Manyate Jagat. That what is in my consciousness, in my mind, I project in the outside. So if I, let's say I'm very greedy, like in the verse, a greedy person, a malicious person, I will seek, what is my advantage of this information, for example? How can I take advantage of it? Or I will not even recognize where there is a good lesson for me because I'm too proud, for example. So humility is important to even be able to be in the process of learning, of receiving knowledge. Because if you think I know stuff already and I'm the smartest, your learning process is finished. Well, it's so important we say, like also in front of a spiritual master, you're supposed to be naked. Like, what does that mean? Like you think, oh, I have nothing to offer. So please instruct me, right? So learning requires a character. So again, therefore, it's a richness. If you have that, then you have something very valuable. If you have certain characters. So I think this is very encouraging because that's something everyone can do because this is internal. Right? We don't have to gather possessions or wait like till maybe by chance we get rich or have to work our way up in some company, whatever. In the association of like-minded people, we can develop. And if you have a mentality of sharing what we have, we help others develop. That's the idea. You know, also with teaching or like with serving, showing others things, helping them to develop their qualities. That's actually real wealth, we can say. Because that has a lasting benefit for ourselves and others. Hare Krishna, I will stop here. And if there are comments or questions, we can have a little discussion till half past. I think can we use that? Is this automatically on?
Otherwise I can just go through. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the lecture. I was wondering how we can develop the qualities like humility, because it's something from outside that you try, but from inside maybe you're still, for example, too proud, or how can we overcome that?
I mean, there are a few ways. One thing it is said, like, if we are truly honest, if we practice be truly honest, we automatically will become humble. You know, because if you truly say what the facts are, like, or like be able to admit our weaknesses, mistakes, then naturally pride will be decreased. You know, if we can be honest, if we're honest with ourselves, you know, then already it's a way to. But another thing is also that's about cultivating knowledge, understanding. We talked about the Ishavasya principle before. Understand our position in relationship to Krishna, in relationship to the world, in terms of how tiny we are. You know, that we are like to understand that we are not, let's say, definitely not the center of the universe, but also not very significant in regards to things go on without us, without a problem. Right? We are not required that things exist. So a consciousness of, I'm just a very tiny, you know, we are Anu, Krishna is Vibhu, the greatest, and we are very small. And by really thinking about that and trying to acknowledge that and understand that, naturally also a sense of humility comes. You know, because also saying, or like understanding our dependency on Krishna. Because if I understand Krishna is the one who maintains me, by His mercy I exist. It's not my achievement that I exist or maintain. In this way, naturally, also humility comes because I understand not just that I'm a small part, but also that I depend on the Lord. Which is not like a fearful state, oh my God, I'm so small, I'm nothing, and I depend on Krishna. It's more like, that's just the relation. But Krishna loves me, of course, and he likes to take care of me. He brought me into existence out of love, not out of nothing to do, let's produce something here, which has no value. But to understand this kind of how we relate to Krishna, there's a few things, but perhaps there's some more comments to it.
Thank you very much. I also have another question, if that's okay. So in regard with the possession, you said that we shouldn't possess more than we need. But is it still okay to possess without being attached? Or sometimes I just wonder, are we not meant to enjoy anything at all?
Well, there are also two perspectives to look at. One thing is, what are the needs? People have different levels of needs, you know. As we say also in Nectar of Instruction, it is said one should not eat more than necessary. So, but then the fact is people have different body types, and what is necessary might mean a different thing for different people. Some can really, they're really, let's say by their nature, they can just, I just need some little water and little food. For others it doesn't work, the body needs different things. So there's a different understanding of necessity according to nature. And therefore, according to this, you can of course possess things. In connection to when you speak of being detached and having possessions, which is also like part of the purport here, like in the service of Krishna, we can use everything. And if a person is truly qualified in terms of being really detached, like from stuff, he can possess practically unlimited kind of things if he or she is able to, use that in Krishna's service. So that, you know, Srila Prabhupada, he founded this whole movement, and it was considered these are his temples, his everything, you know, his book. So because he didn't claim anything for himself. So according to that, if one is matured in detachment and spiritual realization, yeah, you can possess practically many things if you use them in Krishna's service. And there's no harm then. But usually the Vaishnavas, that are presented to us, they stay away from possessions ideally. Because there's always tendency that Maya kind of sneaks in and makes you attached.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. All right. Grantat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.